Hello and welcome back to 1874, the podcast, our second attempt at trying to do this morning, a lesson for everyone in staying on top of their mobile banking, internet banking. The card that we use to pay for our software, etc., had expired and I was too lazy to do anything about it. So didn't change it. And then we tried to play out the podcast this morning, of course, Gregg and myself, and then it didn't work. So apologies if you've tried to watch that first video that came out. This is now the real thing, the bona fide podcast that we normally do on a Monday, that of course we're doing on a Saturday because Villa played on to everyone. I'm your host, Dan Bardell, joined by the Athletic Gregg Evans to look back on Aston Villa 2, Tottenham Hotspur 0, and unfortunately to talk about Emi Martinez's future, because I'm going to be honest, that didn't look great when he was walking around Villa Park at the end of the game crying. So Gregg and I are going to speak about that as an urgent priority as well. This show is sponsored by NordVPN. A little bit more from them later on in the show. You'll all know what Nord do by now. They'll help you watch a lot of extra football. So we'll hear more about them later on in the show. Right then, Gregg, eventually, nearly an hour after we tried to go the first time, we're here. I'm very upset this morning because Villa won, which is great. Chelsea won, which wasn't so great, and that annoyed me greatly on the way home because I had a feeling that was going towards being a 0-0, which would have been a great result for Villa. But this Emi Martinez situation has taken me by surprise. Rollo and I did some content on this channel earlier on in the week. Go back and watch that or listen to it if you haven't done so already. Just saying that losing him to me is unthinkable. And I've posted this morning that him going would be paramount to how I felt when Dwight Yorke and Gareth Barry left. They're the two that really stand out to me as was genuinely upset. It's probably Chuck Grealish in there as well, actually. But you know, were you expecting that last night? Are you expecting it to be his last home game? You and I have not really spoke about his future, so we'll do it now in front of everyone.
Well, you've got a short memory first and foremost because we spoke about it last week, and
I don't think we spoke about it as if it was like this is going to happen.
Yeah, we didn't go into too much detail, but I touched on it. I touched upon it last week, and I said, you know, there's a chance that Emi Martinez is not going to be at Aston Villa next season because, you know, for a couple of weeks, well, months actually, we've been hearing that other clubs are showing an interest. You know, lots of moving parts really. The fact that Villa do need to sell players this summer. They need to manage the business that they do. We've been hearing again also for quite some time that Johan Garcia at Espanyol is a goalkeeper that Villa have been interested in. And I'll be honest, I didn't expect the reaction from Martinez last night. Didn't even cross my mind really. I was thinking more about Ollie Watkins and what he might do to the supporters in terms of you know, a potential emotional goodbye. Didn't really think too much about Martinez, but you know, we have been hearing these noises, you know, for some time now, and whether it happens or not, remains to be seen. But there are lots of clubs that are interested in Emi Martinez, as there has been for some time. But him moving has never been as much of as a possibility as it is now. Whether the interest in Saudi Arabia will appeal to him, or whether he'll still want to go to another big club in Europe and try and actually win something with a club, because he hasn't done that for a while since the FA Cup with Arsenal, and yes, he wanted to move to Aston Villa to become a first team player and play regularly, but he wants to win things as well, and he just hasn't been able to do that at Villa.
Yeah, Agent Cooper says here, am I the only one who thinks Emi was upset because he might leave rather than him definitely leaving? I honestly think Emi gives us an extra 10 to 15 points a season over the average Premier League goalkeeper. I think that's probably a reasonable surmisation of what happened last night. I don't think anything is concrete at the moment. I think that's a fair way to describe it, Gregg. But to me, it's just unthinkable. If I was to write a list of players that, you know, could potentially leave, or, you know, that are must not sell, Emi Martinez would be my first pick, as we definitely can't afford to lose him, because goalkeeper is such an important position. And Rollo and I were speaking about it earlier on in the week. You don't mess with the goalkeeping position. And for me, whatever Villa do, they cannot get a goalkeeper who is better than Emi Martinez. He's genuinely world class. Yes, he's been a little bit off it this season, but still, even last night, the save he makes in the first half, that's Emi Martinez. That's what he brings you. You're not going to get a goalkeeper with his aura. And for me, as an all-round goalkeeper with all the abilities that he has, coming for crosses, sweeping, shot stopper, as I said, just his authority, Villa, whatever they do, will not get a better goalkeeper than him. So for me, that makes him must not sell. I'd rather, everyone knows how much I love Ollie Watkins. I'd rather we sold Watkins than Martinez.
And again, this is what I said last week too. If you remember, I said that Villa cannot lose. For me, they can't lose Emi Martinez, because whoever they bring in, I don't think will be as good. Certainly not immediately. If Garcia is the guy that they want, then you have to trust the recruitment team, aka Unai Emery, and and look, let the new guy settle in. But it becomes, if it is Garcia, and again, we don't know at this stage, because there's a lot to go. Lots of clubs have been interested in him, including some in England as well. and look, he's had a good grounding in La Liga, playing against some of the best teams in the world, against Real Madrid and Barcelona, etc. But let's just focus on Martinez, and I'll reiterate what I said last week. Some supporters really surprised me in recent months and weeks. Even though Martinez's form hasn't been as top level as it has been in previous years, I still think he's really, really important to Villa, and I agree that he saves Villa plenty of points this season, over a course of a season, and has done this season. So losing him, you just lose so much in terms of the authority, the confidence, I think, that he gives to the defenders. I just think that's such an untouched on subject, that the fact that the defence plays with so much more confidence, knowing that they've got a goalkeeper like Emi Martinez behind him, because when that defence is breached, it's not the end of the world, because Martinez can pull off something to literally as the last line of defence. So, again, what I said last week, if he did go, then not everybody will be too sad, because there are, he rubs people up in a certain way, and that's not for everybody. But everybody in that team recognises how much of an important player he is for the performance and the points that Aston Villa need.
Yeah, Maluka says here, and I've just tweeted this morning. Well, actually, I tweeted it a month or so ago, and I've retweeted it this morning. Emi is our only World 11 player, irreplaceable for the attitude as well as the talent. For me, Villa have got some top quality players. Emi Martinez is the only world class player Villa have, in my opinion. World class. He's won the World Cup. Villa have got plenty of other players that could be world class, I think, or a couple of others that could potentially go on to be world class. But Emi Martinez is the only bona fide world class player that's there at the moment. For me, it's like, when Villa sold Jack Grealish for 100 million, really at that point, he's the only player that's going to extract a huge transfer fee. Villa have other players now, that would extract big transfer fees, which for me makes the Martinez thing even more bizarre if he's the one that they choose to sell, because he's 32. If goalkeepers are different to outfielders, that's the equivalent of talking about selling a 26, 27-year-old who's entering their peak as an outfielder. That's where Martinez is at in his career. Neil Cutler, when I did something with him a few weeks ago, said, in terms of games, Martinez is behind where he actually should be, because he didn't play loads as a youngster, especially at the highest level. He's had a few loans and that, but at the top level, he only really started playing when he was 27, 28 at the absolute highest level. For me, that I just got to think there's other things Villa can do. And for him as a character, look, if I'm honest now, me and you doing our jobs, if Saudi Arabia come and offer us a load of money to go and work in football, we probably take it, because we're not on a load of money, are we? We're not millionaires. And if someone from Saudi offers us a job that's a lot more than our current salary, it's all relative. We probably take it. Emi Martinez is on good money at Villa. He's one of the highest paid players. I've never felt he's motivated by those huge kind of sums that are the eye-watering sums that Saudi Arabia pay. For me, he's more motivated by winning things and playing at the highest level, especially when he's missed out on playing at that highest level from the age before 27, if that makes sense. So Saudi Arabia doesn't make much sense to me. But did you say at the start that there's other European clubs that are interested in him as well? It's not just Saudi Arabia.
Well, they inevitably will be, and he will then look at
who would they be though?
Well, there's a lot of clubs. There's a lot of clubs across the continent that would be interested in him, because he's a top class goalkeeper, and I just think that the goalkeeping position is such a strange and unique one. I mean, you look at Wojciech Szczesny, for example, he retired and he came back to football and he's now playing for Barcelona. So it's like
smoking cigars and winning trophies.
So it's like you know, for example, and this is, I'm not saying this is what's going to happen, but for example, he could go to the Middle East. Excuse me. He could go to somewhere like Saudi Arabia.
That doesn't strike me as him.
But listen, right? He could go there for a year, and it would make no difference to his form and the way he is, because he could then go back and get another big club somewhere else. Absolutely no bother whatsoever. So that, you know, if those offers are on the table, they're not going to always be on the table forever, you know. And you know, in football, sometimes you have to move when you're hot, and because the interest isn't always there. So, you know, he will have lots of thoughts this summer. He'll have things to weigh up. You know, is it going to be if he does move, is it right for his family? Because he's a very family orientated man. You know, so all that will have to come into consideration. Is it a performance thing or a financial thing? What's his main, you know, motivation in the next few years ahead? All this comes into consideration for every player. Now, Martinez, before he came to Villa, had won the FA Cup, so he tasted what success was like. He knew that coming to Villa, he would play regularly, and that would get him in the Argentina team. That was his key focus, because there are players in football that we know their country means more to their club, and for Emi Martinez, Argentina is bigger than the club that he plays for, and he's gone on and achieved the things that he really, really wanted to achieve, which was winning the Copa America, winning the World Cup. Nothing is going to beat that for him, no matter what he does. If he wins the Champions League, it's still not going to be as good as winning the World Cup. No chance. Argentina's his big thing. As he's with it for most Argentinians, you know, they're a very passionate group. You speak to English players, they'd prefer to win. Some English players would prefer to win with their club than their country. Others in other way. But anyway, we're talking about Emi Martinez. So he's given a good go at Villa, I'd say. He's, you know, he's stuck around when perhaps others might have moved on.
I agree
when they were in his position.
Yeah.
You know, he could have pushed for a move after winning the World Cup and said, "Look, you know, I'm not fighting to try and get into Europe. I want to go and play in the Champions League now and be at a club who could go and win it."
Yeah,
so
I agree with that.
let's remember the loyalty that he's shown to Villa. Let's also remember what Villa have done for him. Promised to get him into the Argentina team by playing regular. Got him out of Arsenal, paid him what he wanted, given him some good contract extensions and pay increases, and have promised to build a really strong team to back up his qualities, which they have, haven't they? And they've got into Europe, got into the Champions League, etc. So it's worked for both. It's worked for both parties. Inevitably, players just move on as well, and you know we often forget that there's no, as much as Martinez has a connection with Villa, there's no like lifelong loyalty there, is there? He will go and play somewhere else.
Yeah, but I feel like he when he speaks, he genuinely loves Villa. Like, I don't think that's an act. I'm not saying that.
No,
I know you're not.
Turning his back on Argentina, for example, there'd be, you know, it'd be huge uproar, because they'd be like, how could this guy who's born in Argentina, has done everything for Argentina, but leaving Aston Villa, it's not really that big of a deal, you know. Players move on. So look, it's going to be an interesting summer for Villa. The key is that if he does move, they have to find somebody who can, you know, replace him, because
that's doable.
It's going to be difficult. But you've got to back the guys in charge. If they see a player who they think can be his replacement, then, you know, let's wait and see.
I don't want to dwell on this because I've done a couple of shows on Martinez in the last week anyway, but it feels like such big news watching how emotionally he was last night. I just think, look at some of the goalkeepers in the Premier League that are playing for teams like Chelsea, Manchester United, Tottenham. You know, if it was so easy to have a good goalkeeper, they'd have one. Because we know it's not easy. We know it's not easy. I'm just going to refer to some of the chapters that I've written in my book, and when I look back at some of the, you know, the research and the time that I spent speaking to people, trying to get a good goalie in for so long at Villa was difficult. And if you remember,
No, my book is out in a month now, so I can reveal one of the chapters. One of the chapters is called the key window, and if you think back to the key window when Aston Villa signed a number one goalkeeper who was going to play for the next 10 years potentially, and a striker, a number 9, who was going to go and play for the next 10 years potentially if nothing happened. The fact that Villa got Martinez and Watkins together was incredible.
Yeah, what are we?
Absolutely incredible. We talk a lot about Unai Emery and the changes that he's made at Villa, but think of some of the recruitment is often it doesn't get talked about enough. And just one player when we move on throughout this conversation, I'd like to touch on a little bit more is Konsa, because I do feel that he often doesn't get the credit that he deserves. But we can move on to that.
Yeah, we'll speak about that when we cover his goal from last night. Gregg, Konsa sniffing out goals like the poacher that he is. Just wanted one more thing on Martinez and the goalkeeping situation. Surely Villa should be kind of going down the route that Liverpool have gone down, where they've got this genuine world-class goalkeeper, but he's in his 30s. Alisson's older than Martinez, isn't he? Anyway, so Alisson's further along in his career than I think they might even be the same age. I'm not sure. Do you know how old Alisson is?
33, I think Alisson is.
So similar age then. But Liverpool have signed Mahmoud-Ashvili, who's coming in the summer. Kelleher's probably going to move on, but that's succession planning, and we spoke about Villa and their succession planning from within and signings that they make and stuff. Surely Villa should be bringing in that younger goalkeeper in a similar vein to what Liverpool are doing, because just throwing someone in to replace Emi Martinez, they're impossible gloves to fill, in my opinion. Villa were going to have to sign a goalkeeper anyway in the summer, because Olsen's going back to his homeland, and Villa needed a number 2 goalkeeper. Surely they should be going down a similar route to Liverpool. And I know you've covered this move, so you'll be well placed to talk about it.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of differences there. I mean, without criticising Olsen too much, I think that Villa should have addressed that backup goalkeeper position much earlier than they have. I don't think that. I think it's mismanagement in some ways that Olsen has been there for so long. They should have had somebody else, younger, fresher, coming through, and trying to integrate him. At times.
I've got to interrupt you to that. I'd forgotten that this happened. Yeah. The Jonathan Ridgway comment. That doesn't bode well for the future. Jonathan Ridgway just reminded me that Monchi sold Alisson to Liverpool and replaced him with Robin Olsen. Can't wait for Emi Martinez as his replacement. God.
Yeah, I know. I mean, to be fair to Olsen, he was highly rated at the time Roma signed him, and he was performing very well for his former club, Copenhagen, I think, wasn't it? But yeah, that didn't quite work out. So to go back to your comparison with Liverpool, the difference really is Alisson, as brilliant of a goalkeeper is, has more injuries than Martinez. So Liverpool needed to think of the succession planning was more important to them. Liverpool have also got the best backup goalkeeper in the division by far. Kelleher would play in, I'd say, 90% of Premier League teams. So they have 2 very, very strong goalkeepers already. There's also been the Saudi interest in Alisson for quite some time, but he's turned down those moves to stay at Liverpool. But his contract, I think, has 2 years remaining, so it's a little bit more of a perilous position. And look, Alisson has been there for a bit longer as well. So there are some similarities, and fair play to Liverpool, because they've actually got a very good choice goalkeeper in Vitaslav Jaros,
who goalkeeping department.
Yeah, who will go and play top flight football somewhere next season and be very good. So Villa have just mismanaged the department a little bit. I don't blame them too much, because they've got a brilliant goalkeeper in Martinez, who's so durable. He's available more often, most of the season. And we know that when he's playing, nobody's going to replace him. But now is the time to get this moving, isn't it?
Yeah, the full COVID season, I remember speaking to Cuts about this. I actually thought Villa had the strongest goalkeeping department in the Premier League when they had Martinez in his first season, Tom Heaton and Jed Steer. So that felt a very strong goalkeeping department. But then, from what I know, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Steven Gerrard decided, we need a new number 2, and we're going to go and get a new number 2, and we're going to go and get Robin Olsen, who's on the bench at Sheffield United at the time on loan. So that's what happened there. So thank you very much, Steve and Gerard, for that one.
I would also say that Johan Langer would have played a part in that,
of course,
given the fact that he knew him from Copenhagen.
Yeah, of course. Maybe I know Arsenal won't be going back to Spurs because he's going back to his homeland, isn't he? Don't think there's anything else to cover there with Emi Martinez. We've covered it for 20 minutes, but I've got to admit, when I saw, because I could, where I sit, I could obviously see that he looked a little bit emotional, and it came up on the screen, and I saw Twitter. I was like, oh my God, that does not look good at all. I just hope something happens with that, and it doesn't end up happening, because I think it's unthinkable to lose Emi Martinez. Anyway, we have come here to talk about the game, so I suppose we should do that. But before we do, let's hear it. 1874 is proudly sponsored by NordVPN, so when you can't watch it, we want to help you. NordVPN is a secure and private service which works on pretty much any device, including your laptop, mobile, and television. So if you want to watch some live content, it allows you to appear like you're in another country. And whilst you're connected, no one else can find out what you're doing, including your internet service provider. Beyond this, the service also has threat protection baked in to protect you from intrusive website ads and malware, which is pretty handy for you. As part of NordVPN support performance for free, this also includes Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. All you've got to do is go to 1874.io/NordVPN and sign up. All the details are also in the description. As always, we're very grateful to anyone that signs up. We know that money is tight, but if you think NordVPN will help you out, it will also help keep the channel running and help us too. Oh, did he played it twice there? Concentration in the toilet for me there. Right, Greg, let's talk about the game. I expected Villa to win. They did win. First half, didn't look like we were going to find that finishing touch. Second half that we did. But I've got to say, I was never really worried that we weren't going to win. There were some people around me who were quite concerned at half-time, and I didn't agree with that, because I just always felt Villa would score, and once they did, that would be that. Tottenham didn't carry much threat, but Villa won a game that we expected them to win. Chelsea won a game that we probably expected them to win. So not much has changed in the race for the top five, really, and it sets up a huge weekend on the last day of the season for Villa.
Yeah, it does, but I think quite a lot has changed, actually, in the fact that Villa won their game. So that was really important. If they lost the game and Chelsea had lost it, that would have been a lot worse. So Villa, I said, if Villa got the 2 wins, then it put them in such a strong position that surely one of the other teams would drop a point or two, along the way. So I think there's still a lot of twists and turns, because there's just so many games to still be played. I said to one of my friends earlier in the week, I think it was 8 games or 10 games. I can't exactly remember my maths, because a couple of teams play each other. But how often, when you're picking results, do you pick, no matter, regardless of the level of the team, do you predict sort of 8 or 10 results to be accurate? There's always something that you don't expect. So
my ACCA record is absolutely horrendous.
Yeah,
I've never actually won one.
Likewise, so there's even if you think you're picking the favourites, and the teams that are expected to win, it's always so difficult. So Villa got the job done. They won the game. They go and win against Manchester United, which, blimey, I mean, they should do, shouldn't they? Man U are just so bad. Then that probably will be enough, but who knows? We didn't expect Manchester City to drop points against Southampton, did we?
That was big, actually. That's dragged them in a little bit, I think.
If they drop points against Bournemouth, all of a sudden the picture looked really, really good for Villa. The game, I thought Tottenham were probably better. In fact, in the first half, I thought Tottenham were better than I expected. I thought they carried a bit of a threat, couple of chances, played with a bit of freedom, but then they just faded away in the second half. Didn't look too interested, certainly after the second goal had gone in. And this is probably a little bit insulting, to be honest, and I don't mean it that way, because Tottenham are better than a Championship team. But in some ways, the second half reminded me of the games against Cardiff and Preston, where it wasn't quite as backs to the wall from the opponents, but it was more a case of them, Villa, asserting themselves in the second half, having the quality to get over the line and get the job done. I always felt watching it that I thought that they'd do it, and they did. And look, Tottenham and Manchester United, we won't dwell on those two teams for very long, but one of them is going to be so disappointed on Wednesday night, because it has been a dreadful, utterly, truly dreadful season for them in the Premier League. When you think Tottenham were going head to head with Villa for 4th place last year, and where they finished,
that last night.
I mean, imagine if Villa were there, how bad Villa fans would feel right now.
Might be if we sell Emi Martinez, that might be us next year.
No, look, yeah.
You say that about one of them.
It will be damaging if Villa lose Martinez, but I think they've got enough elsewhere to get through it.
I'm using humour to cloud my sadness at the moment. You say about one of them's going to be like massively disappointed come the end of Wednesday. One of them's going to think, my God, we are lucky. Champions League football next season. I mean, you say Spurs not being a championship side, they are 17th. They're not too far away from. I
think if they lose their final game of the season, they've lost the same amount of games as Ipswich.
They've lost. They've already lost more than when Leeds last went down, I believe.
I mean, if you think when Birmingham City the one year they went down with 41 points.
Yeah, it's pretty sad about that.
But I think that's right. I hope I'm not wrong. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm sure it was. But 38 points in some seasons, that could get you. That would take you down.
Yeah, they're lucky that the three that have come up have been in dire straits, really, because otherwise they'd have been sucked right in. And I think if Manchester United and Tottenham had realistically been sucked into a relegation battle, I'm not convinced they've got the mentality to get out of it. I think they would have been in big trouble. Just a story that's playing on my mind now. I like stuff like this, like. You mentioned about the results and when you put on an accumulator and stuff. There's a lot. When I think of you, there's the one story I always think of in my head first was when we were coming back from Marbella, when we'd been with the Stuttgart team and been with Thomas Hitzelsberger when he was the director of football there. Was he CEO actually, wasn't he? When we went to see him in Marbella, and we're in the airport and you'd put an accumulator on, and there was a goal right at the end. You were celebrating because that was the one that you needed for your accumulator, and you were really celebrating. And whilst you were celebrating, a goal went in the
other side. Yeah.
But I just remember how upset you were. That's the story I think of when I think of you. You said you wanted to speak
that would have paid for my Burger King, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would have done. Might not have done in the airport, to be fair. You said you wanted to talk about Ezri Konsa. It was obviously Konsa that broke the deadlock last night. Popped up with a few goals recently, actually. Konsa. He's had a decent season for goals, considering no other Villa centre-back has a clue where the goal is, because we never score off centre-backs. He's had a reasonably good season in front of goal, but he just generally is so consistent, and he deserves goals.
Yeah, had a couple of good chances against PSG as well, didn't he? Which, if he'd have taken another one of those, that'd have could have made a real
with his feet, hasn't he? He's put some good finishes in this season. If you think of PSG, Wolves at home at the start of the season as well, he's actually scored some good finishes with his feet. They've all been with his feet, actually, his goals, which is rare.
Yeah. And look, I think the long body of work that Konsa's got with Austin McPhee, he knows exactly various routines that Villa tend to roll out. If you look back to some of the routines that Villa have worked on, they're rolling out movements from like 2 years ago again, and they're just replaying, recycling. That's the word I was looking for. Recycling the playbook, which it's clever, and players that have been there for a long time know those exact movements. And it takes a lot of to score those set piece goals, because each player, believe it or not, will have an individual role, and will have quite a lot to do, and to remember everything it takes quite a lot of time and practice. But anyway, want to focus on Konsa more as a defender rather than a goal scorer, because I think that, and I'm not quite sure why, actually. I think Villa fans appreciate him. Yeah, I'm not denying that at all. And I think more nationwide, there's a what am I trying to say? People know that he's a very good player, right? Yeah. I think he's underrated. That's basically what I'm trying to say. I just don't think he quite gets the credit that he fully deserves. I've spoken a lot about the debate between Torres and Mings and who plays, and Emery spoke about that last night. He said, look, he thinks that the defence has got much better in more recent months because he's had the two of them available and he's able to rotate them and use them for different games. I do think he missed a trick playing Mings perhaps in some of the bigger games previously, but I've already said that. But anyway, we move on. For Konsa, is it because maybe that he comes across as, in interviews and stuff, as a little bit cold, maybe. He's not quite as, he's not a very sort of cheerful interview, is he? And maybe people don't attach to him in that way because, he's quite reserved, I think, and perhaps comes across a little bit cold. Although I don't think he means to do that. But let's just focus on him as a performer, and I think he's brilliant. I really do, and I think he deserves so much more credit because he's gone through some tough times at Villa. When they were a struggling team, and has helped the team improve so much. And has taken on new responsibility. When he came to Villa, he was an out-and-out defender, but Emery asked him to do a lot more things different, and he's just taken those on. So, very tactically intelligent as well.
Yeah, I think me and Rollo did a batch of content earlier on in the week, and I think it was for his channel. There's people sent in their unpopular opinions, and someone sent in their opinion that Konsa was overrated. So I won't spoil what I said, but basically I completely disagreed with that because, and I will spoil it a little bit because it's not my channel anyway, actually, so it doesn't matter. Whenever I talk about Villa after the game, I'll do a post on social media and I'll single someone out, like I posted about Maatsen this morning, for example. I never ever post about Konsa because he just does the same thing every week. So you almost forget about him because he's so consistent.
And that was my point. Yeah, that was my point. He's just he's not hyped up enough, is he? Because
and I'm guilty. I know I'm guilty of as well. Like Mings plays, and I'm like, Mings, another titanic performance from him at the back. Absolutely love the bloke. Konsa just does the same thing every week. But I think because he's a little more understated generally in the way he plays the game, you kind of just miss him out as a Villa fan because he's so consistent. Like, I can probably go as far as to say now, Ezri Konsa will probably never win Player of the Year for Villa whilst he's here, and he never has won Player of the Year for Villa whilst he's here. But that doesn't mean he's not a good player. It just means that he's just ultra consistent, and sometimes you need players like that in your squad and in your team in particular, don't you?
Absolutely. And I mean, I remember something John Terry, who we all know was a brilliant defender himself, when he was coaching at Villa, he used to say to the defenders, "Don't be seen." That's my one. That's my one bit of advice. If you're not seen or you're not talked about, then it means you're doing a really good job. And Ming, he actually gave that advice to Tyrone Mings, and Tyrone tried to take that on, and certainly did implement it into his game. But Konsa, who Terry obviously would have worked with as well, exemplifies that now, because he just. As you say, you come out of the game and you don't think about Ezri Konsa playing really well because he just does that every week.
He scored and kept a clean sheet and been his normal self, and I still haven't tweeted about him. That probably just
let's start the Ezri Konsa appeal.
I'm a bit bitter because I had 3 Villa players in my fantasy football team, and I needed to get Ollie Watkins in this week to captain, which I did, but I had to take a Villa player out, so I had Martinez, Rodgers, and Konsa. Who do you think I took out? Bye 18 points. So yeah, I took Ezri Konsa out, didn't I? So I'm feeling a little bit bitter about that. Just to touch on a few other players, Greg. Actually, sorry, another Konsa story. Tommy Elphick always said to me, he's a proper defender. I'm talking like years and years ago, just as he'd left, Tommy Elphick said to me, Ezri Konsa can be anything he wants. He's such a top defender. People don't realise how good he is at all. Like, he could go and be England's best centre-back, no problem. So within football, I think people do realise how good he is. Was it Saka was speaking? Was it Saka? Someone spoke about him in the Euros, how they'd been practicing up against him and how difficult it was to get past him. Was it Saka? I can't remember, but someone definitely spoke about it in the England squad as well. Konsa is Mr. Reliable. You don't get more reliable as a centre-back than Ezri Konsa, that's for sure. A few other players that stood out last night, Greg. I thought that was Asensio's best game for a number of weeks. You could label him as a flat-track bully, I guess, playing against Tottenham Hotspur. Would that be fair? But I thought he was brilliant in the first half. Everything good Villa did came through him.
Yeah, he was good. Enjoyed watching him. He probably needed a goal, really, didn't he, to top off his performance. Yeah, he wasn't lucky. He had a couple of good chances, but no, I was impressed and enjoyed watching him.
Yeah, Maatsen at left back I thought was impeccable as well. Defensively, you can see that they've done lots of work with him. We knew they were doing lots of work with him, but I'd expect him and Luca Dean to kind of switch roles next season, where if Luca Dean's still here, I'd expect him to be the mainstay at left back, and it'd be Luca Dean that comes in for certain games. Maatsen was brilliant, I thought, and has really grown as the season's gone on, especially over the back end of it.
Yeah, again, another good performance from him. I think having a settled back back line, alongside him helps now. If you remember, it wasn't so long ago that Luca Dean was having to play at centre back, was it? Because Villa had such a shortage. So I do think that stability helps, with Kamara in there as well, acting as that defensive helping hand, and just having either Torres or Mings next to Konsa.
Yeah, and finally, this guy's just a bloody joke, John McGinn. He's so fun. So fun to watch in that type of game. He's so good. Over the last third of the season, I think he's been Villa's best player, really leading by example. Some absolutely stellar performances, no matter who we're playing against. I just love the fact that he's here still, and that for me, he's if I'm picking a team tomorrow for a final, he's in it.
Yeah, it's interesting you should say that, because again, referring to the book, there's so much about John McGinn in there that people won't know, and I just think they're going to be so surprised when they read some of the things about him, and to see where he is now. And that's all I'm going to say, because I don't want to spoil it.
I'm trying to look up there and the
picture's
not working.
The book's out in a month, but people who listen to this conversation and read the book will get to the part in the book and realise, bloody hell, and they will not get their breath at what could have happened.
Really?
So yeah, to see John McGinn doing really well now, he's great. Because look on a personal note, for human to human, man to man, whatever you want to say, he's one of the the top guys that you'll ever meet.
Yeah, agree. It wouldn't be anything to do with Steven Gerrard time, would it, Greg?
Yeah, a little bit of a crossover.
Okay, of course. I think I know then. I think I know along the lines of which you are travelling on your book. I'll leave the QR code up for the rest of the show though, so that people can scan. So that's official, is it? A month till Gregg Evans' book.
20th of June. Yeah.
I'm looking forward to that. I said to my wife the other night, I need to start reading more, like before bed and stuff, not scrolling phone. I need to be reading books. When Gregg's signed copy gets delivered to me, I'll be reading that book at night time, I reckon. I have to read it quickly because I want to talk. Well, I suppose I can't talk about things on the pod because we don't want to spoil the book, do we?
Me and Matt will be doing some promotional stuff leading up to it now, because it's not too far now.
Yeah. Surely we've got to have an event in the book soon, Greg.
What, sorry?
Surely we've got to have an event in the book soon to promote the book.
What reveal something from the book, you mean?
No, I'm saying like surely there's like when I say a book tour, I don't mean that.
Oh, right, yeah. I mean,
a live event somewhere. Surely
we'll be doing some promotional activity soon. Yeah, I don't know the exact, but we're coming up to it now. It's out in a month, isn't it? So
yeah,
it'd be nice to have it actually in my hand and just because we've only seen the I haven't actually physically got it yet because it hasn't been printed. But yeah, it's exciting times. A lot of hard work went into it. A lot of things changed over the course of this season, but we were very careful not to focus it too much on what was happening at this season, because ultimately our deadline was the back end of last year. So we just had a little bit of wriggle room to get some more stuff in, but it's very, very minimal from this season.
Okay. Yeah, well, it's so great to be joined by a seasoned author on the podcast anyway, and I am genuinely
a novice.
Genuinely really, really excited to read that book. Is right up my street, and I'm sure there's other Villa fans and other people that listen to our show every week that are really looking forward to it as well. I can see loads of people scanning the QR codes as we speak. Live Gregg Evans signing in Waterstones. That is what
could be happening.
See, John.
Could be happening. Yeah.
That is what we. I remember when I was, how old would I have been? 14, 15. Must have been my 15th birthday. Going to Waterstones to get a signed copy of David Ginola's book in Sutton. I've still got it.
Was there lots of ladies in the queue?
I can't remember, but all I remember is like I was a 15-year-old kid like buying this book, and I was really excited. I barely said 2 words for him. I was pretty intimidated by him, in all honesty. But the person in front of me in the queue turned up with a load of gifts. Like giving him loads of gifts, like this picture that they painted for him in a big frame and stuff. He was a lady actually. Yeah. She gave him all this stuff and like loads and loads of gifts, and then I just turned up after a spotty 15-year-old kid to get the book signed. I was like, why did I have to be after her? I remember that made me even more nervous. I wasn't as cool in front of footballers as I am nowadays.
It's interesting, isn't it? It's funny really when you look back on those, and just across celebrities in general, not just in football. But there was such a clamour to go and see or be next to like a celebrity, wasn't there, before, in the 90s or even further back, because
You didn't even
there
have
was
your
no,
phones, take
there was
photos
no,
and stuff there, did you?
yeah, but I think there was no social media, so you didn't ever like, if you liked, I don't know, if you liked a boy band, for example, or a girl band, girl group, then you didn't see them on social media, did you? So
No.
you would only ever see them on Top of the Pops or whatever, and then you'd go and see them. But yeah, I mean, God, yeah, it's mad how times have changed. And when you look at it last night, and you see the lap of honour at the end, and
Emery
you've
was
got Unai Emery, high fiving everyone and taking selfies with people. I mean, it was nice to see him like that, because you don't actually see him open up and try and embrace and enjoy it, because he's just so focused on work. So to see him sort of lighten up a little bit was good.
Yeah.
Anyone in the comments get a selfie with him?
I saw someone on my Facebook who I'm friends with, their daughter got a selfie with Unai.
There were a lot of very excited and happy faces with people who, he signed a few shirts, didn't he? And he got a couple of selfies with people. I mean, they're special moments for supporters. Those are, to get the manager doing that. It's great, and I think it's still good that supporters, that players do this lap of honour, because it gives something back to the fans, doesn't it?
Yeah, Epson's got his friend around here today. And he's the lad that was at Bournemouth last week that Watkins gave out to.
Oh,
so
nice.
He's got a real piece of history in his life. I think from speaking to him, he really realises how special and important that is. So I was hoping that Tyler might go round to his house and steal it, but come round our house, and he did not bring the shirt round for me to see. Obviously, doesn't trust me, so that's disappointing. Right then, Greg. Eventually, we got there. We managed to pull off a podcast. So thank you very much for joining me today, and thank you to the hundreds of you that have been live with us in the chat as well. However you're watching via YouTube, whether you're going back and watching or whether you watched live, if you could make sure you subscribe with your post notifications on, give us a like and leave us a comment as well. Listening via audio platforms, 5-star reviews and leaving us a nice review / comment at the order of the day. If you could do that for us, that would be absolutely sensational. Thank you to NordVPN for continuing to sponsor us, and there'll be some more shows on the channel later on. Well, probably in the next 24 to 48 hours, so watch out for that. Enjoy your Villa-free weekend. Enjoy the FA Cup final, because that's obviously going to be a big one. Although it should be us, we should be there. We should have turned up. That's disappointing. So yeah, that will taint the FA Cup final for me a little bit, but enjoy it anyway, because it's pretty much the only football that we have on today. Thank you again to Greg. Make sure you order his book, and as ever, up the Villa.